tires are rolling. We're a lap away from the start of this race. 95 laps, 187.4 miles. And as we indicated, this is a 1.96 mile, 14 turn temporary course. And Scott, these drivers face a big challenge here this afternoon.
It's a great track out here in Western Canada, Bob, and all these drivers, for a lot of them, it's the first time they've come up to Canada, and for 19 of them, it's the first time they've ever seen this particular racetrack here in Edmonton. It is part of the airport, the local airport, and it is very fast. It is very rough. The slowest turn is about 65 miles an hour, and the fastest turn, turns 13 and 14, are 150 miles an hour. Somewhat different than some of the other street airport circuits that we've actually seen earlier this year. If we take into account the course at St. Petersburg, which has utilization of part of the runway down there, the course at St. Petersburg is very tight. A lot of tight turns and stop-and-go type situations. Well, here in Edmonton on the right, you can see a lot of fast turns, 80, 90, 120 miles an hour. We mentioned the 150 mile an hour turns in 13 and 14. So the drivers here will find a very tough day going here at Edmonton.
Take a look at the Rextall starting grid at the top of your screen as Team Penske leads the entire field now through the turn 11 area, just about to get the green flag. The top five in points, Scott Dixon with a 58-point advantage on Helio Castroneves. Tony Kanaan is third, Weldon fourth, and the pole sitter Ryan Briscoe is fifth in the point standings. Here they come down for the start of the race. The green flag is waving, and just like at Cleveland, look at the width of the runway that they will be using. But it looks like everybody is taking it pretty easy through corner number one. We didn't see any slide offs or any problems at all. Let's hope that continues for the entire race as Ryan Briscoe from his pole position has jumped out in front. I spoke too soon. Graham Rahal is off course.
And it doesn't look like his car is tracking very well. I would say the right rear suspension looks like that is broken, Bob, the way that he's sort of bouncing through the grass there.
You will notice on his car, he's carrying sponsorship from Rextall and the Edmonton Oilers on that car here in Alberta. Well, Ryan Briscoe and Helio Castroneves started first and second, and that's where they run. There's Graham Rahal as he has gotten back on course, but it doesn't look like that car is tracking exactly right. Here's a replay.
Definitely the right rear, you can see the right rear there is not connected, so he's broken something on the car, whether it's the A-arms or upright, we're not sure. And we're riding along with Paul Tracy right now. You can see the car on your left, the 26 of Marco Andretti also went through the grass. Anytime you have a tight section on the racetrack like that, every driver wants the same piece of real estate, Bob, and it just doesn't work out sometimes.
And the left front tire isn't even on the ground properly, so this is not a good situation for Graham Rahal. Meanwhile, up front, Ryan Briscoe continues to lead this race. Back in third position is Oriol Serbia. Fourth is Scott Dixon, and fifth is Will Power at the end of one lap.
Bob, you talked about the start and how wide the racetrack is. The track is 50 feet minimum. In most spots around here, as much as 75. And you take into account that it's 25 to 30 feet minimum. And a lot of racetracks that we visit, sometimes like St. Petersburg, up to 60 feet wide. So a very wide racing surface here in Edmonton.
All right, let's get your thoughts on what we look for in today's race.
Well, we've already been on board with Paul Tracy for a moment. You know, Paul is here to make a statement. He's not here to make friends. He felt that he was left out when the merger happened. Believe that he has the opportunity to be a driver here full-time in the IndyCar Series. Tony Kanaan started 27th because of engine change, because of qualifying problems that he had, so he had to start at the back. I look for him to move up very quickly throughout this race today. An abusive racetrack. We've already seen how bumpy it is. It's going to be abusive not only in the drivers but also on the cars, and it's going to be very taxing on both. And a third of this way through the event, you'll start to see some drivers maybe start to get a little bit fatigued, but it's going to be that last portion that I think drivers are going to have to really focus on not making a mistake.
Keep your eye on Tony Kanaan as we show you the standings throughout the race. He's now up to 20th position, so he has passed 7 cars in the first 2 laps of the race. Tony Kanaan started last because he changed engines, and he changed engines because he got off course during one of the qualifying runs and damaged the engine which required the change. Team Penske with about a second-and-a-half lead on third place Oriole Serbia. Dixon fourth in power. Wilson, Junqueira, Weldon, Bernoldi, and Ryan Hunter-Ray in the top 10. And Paul Tracy has moved up to 11th as the lead has now been captured by Elio Castroneves.
A small mistake going into the turn by Ryan Briscoe. Just locked up the wheels momentarily. Got himself off stride, lost his momentum, and for sure the teammates there to pounce on it. Now for Ryan Briscoe, what he needs to do, he's very upset that he made that mistake. He knows he's given the door opening to Elio Castroneves, and he knows he's very fast. He's in the same car as Ryan, so he's now saying to himself, I need to smoothen myself back out and get myself back on task here.
Elio Castroneves second in the point standings, but he has not won a race this year. I think it's a matter of time. He's had 10 top 5s, 10 top 10s. I don't think it's a question of if, it's a question as to when Elio is going to win his first race. And he's opened up a sizable advantage now on his teammate, Ryan Briscoe. It's 1.6 seconds, so after he took the lead, Elio took off.
And Elio did look a little quicker in the opening lap because he was able to get into the braking zones a little bit better than Ryan. Now, this is obviously lap 5 of 95. It's still early in the race. It's still early in the segment. So a lot of fuel to be burned off of these cars, and then also a little bit of tire wear to take into account. Will Elio's car stay this strong throughout the whole fuel run and the segment that he has to run until the first pit, or will Ryan's get just a little bit stronger? That's what we'll have to wait and see.
They're working on Graham Rahal there on the right of your screen. Jan, what's the story?
He has told the team that what happened, Bob, he was hit on the start by Mario Moraes. It has broken the right rear push rod, but they're also working on the left front of the car. It looks like a steering arm. So he's still in the car, as you can see, and the Newman Haas-Lanigan team wants to get this Rextall entry back out on the racetrack, but obviously he's using lots of laps. It'll just be bringing up the rear and hoping for more attrition for Graham Rahal.
Mario Moraes started in 10th position, his best start of the year. He's running back in 22nd at the moment.
As far back as he is, the 22nd, as you mentioned, Bob, makes you wonder if he's not done some damage to his car also. Maybe not enough to warrant for him to come in, but certainly maybe enough to lock the alignment out of the car, and hence the reason why he's going so far back.
You talked about the fuel run, Scott. When can we expect the fuel window to open here at the first?
Well, this is the very first time, as we're now starting to watch Oriole Serbia, who's running in third in one of the KV entries. You know, they're saying if you're going at full throttle, full rich on the fuel settings, they're saying somewhere around 30 or 31 laps. And if you're running a lean setting, that means giving the engine not as much fuel. You don't make as much horsepower. You're not going to go as fast. They're saying somewhere in the neighborhood of 34 to 35. But, you know, this is all calculations that the teams have done in warm-ups, and it's a little bit different in the race. Remember, this is the first time these cars and these Honda engines have been at the circuit, so we'll wait to see.
And it's the first time that the transition drivers and the regular drivers have gone face-to-face, and the only time that the transition drivers actually have an advantage on the others, because Serbia, Tracy, Dominguez all have 3 starts, and Will Power is into the pit area. He was running in 13th position when he came in for the stop. He started up in the 5th spot. Early problems for Will Power as he gets the job done in the pit area and heads back out on the racetrack as Elio continues to show the way, advancing now 2.2 seconds over his teammate Briscoe. Elio Castroneves, as we mentioned, has not won a race all year. As a matter of fact, it's been since St. Pete of last year that he has won a race. We're going to take a break and be back. We'll go side by side here from the Rextall Edmonton Indy.
IRL Racing on TSN is brought to you by GoDaddy.com, the world's #1 domain registrar, where .ca domains are now available.
My dream is to be like Danica Patrick. Dad, what do you think?
Race? All right.
So I got a cool website from GoDaddy for my fans and sponsors. And a hot cart from my dad. Feeding the boys? That was up to me.
It's Danica Patrick.
You forgot this. Congratulations.
Everyone has a dream. Build yours today with a domain name from GoDaddy.com.
Every day, people put themselves at risk unnecessarily by abusing drugs. Surprising thing is, they don't even know it. You see, many of us feel fine, so we don't refill our prescriptions, like Brad here. That's why Rextall developed Canada's first service that automatically
Rextall reminder
reminds you to refill your prescription. Take your medication seriously. We do. Rextall, a pharmacy first.
Official vehicle of the Canadian Olympic team. Chevrolet.
Argos, Riders, CFL on TSN. The action starts tomorrow at 7 Eastern. In Montreal, there's no room for fear on the court. Only the strong survive. This is where champions come to play. Desire, strength, determination. The 2008 Rogers Cup. Coverage starts Monday at 1 Eastern on TSN. NASCAR Canadian Tire Series from Sun Valley, BC. Tomorrow at noon on TSN.
2.8 seconds over Ryan Briscoe. Most recently, Will Power has been in the pit area, and in fact, he is still in there. Brienne, what's the problem?
Bob, actually, they are taking the 8 car back to the garage as we speak. What happened was, around lap 5, Will thought he had a flat tire, so he came in. He actually did not have a flat tire. The left front wishbone was bent. They sent him back out. 1 lap later, Will said, I can't drive this car. He brought it back in, and now they're trying to do whatever they can to fix it and get him back in the race. Disappointing start to the day for KB. Guys?
One of those drivers who has experience on this racetrack. In fact, he was the pole sitter last year, driving for Walker Racing in 2007 here at Edmonton. Will Power started first, finished in 15th position. It's an early out for Will Power. Elio continues to show the way. There's a separation between first and second and back to third and fourth. Scott Dixon is sneaking up on Oriel Servia, who is running in the third position.
For Scott Dixon right now, he knows that Elio Castroneves knows he just needs to continue finishing in front of Dixon to the run for the championship and make sure he gets maximum points. Elio said to me just last week, and I know I have to start beating him, and if he can finish a couple of cars behind me, that's exactly what needs to happen for me to have a shot at winning the championship this year. He's currently 58 points behind in the championship run, and as you get 50 points for a first and 40 for a second, that's the sort of gap that he needs. He needs to win these races, Bob, and he needs Dixon to start finishing back 4th, 5th, or 6th, somewhere along there.
We're on board with Paul Tracy, who has moved up to 10th position, so he has increased his standing by 5, started in 15th position. Up ahead of him is Ryan Hunter-Reay. That, of course, is a car that was entered by Vision Racing, but for all practical purposes is being prepared by Walker Racing. Our Ethanol Edge shows him with 3 poles, 5 wins, 17 top 5s, and 467 laps led in open wheel competition in his home country of Canada. That's Ryan Hunter-Reay just up ahead, and then Dan Weldon ahead of him.
You know, Paul's running speeds right now, Bob, that are probably about 2 seconds faster than at least the next 4 cars in front of him. So he just has to make good decisions on the racetrack, catch the traffic at the right time, but most importantly, have patience. He's got to get to the end.
Paul Tracy's first start in open wheel competition this year. Paul Tracy, of course, was contracted to another team that did not choose to make the transition to the IndyCar Series. And so we asked Paul earlier in the weekend about proving himself and getting back into competition.
The frustrating part for me is, is that I think people were expecting that I should come and pay my dues again and hang out and wait around the garage for somebody to crash or get in bad equipment and try to prove myself again. And really, I said, I'm not going to do that. I know what I'm capable of doing if I'm in a good team. And you know, I waited for the right opportunity, working with Derek and obviously with Subway coming on board, and we've come right out of the box with zero preparation.
Well, we talked about this during our qualifying show yesterday, Scott. I don't know anybody that wouldn't like to see Paul Tracy in the IndyCar Series full-time. Not only is he a great competitor, but he's a colorful guy.
He really is, and you know, he's 39 years of age right now, so is he going to get picked up by a younger team, or a team that's looking for younger drivers? Maybe not, but for the Vision team right now that needs a road course veteran, Jan Bikus, this might just be the right selection for a team that really does need help on road courses.
Good point, Scott. And for those that watched the qualifying coverage on ESPN 360, you'll know that Paul Tracy had made a statement all through the weekend. He was fast right off of the trailer, but they put too much fuel into the car in qualifying, and it's 7 pounds a gallon of this ethanol fuel. He said he had 4 extra laps. What had happened is they had just put the fuel into the car, then there was a full course caution, only a couple laps left in qualifying. He actually did a time fast enough to get into the top 12, but after the checkered flag, they took it away. So that 15 starting position, certainly not representative. Now we're seeing the kind of speed that Paul Tracy has in the Subway entry.
And Jan, you know from driving these cars yourself, you know that extra weight in the car from the fuel certainly makes a huge difference, especially when you're running speeds that these guys are running that are so close, and just sometimes a tenth of a second means the difference whether you get in or out. And Bob, I think that was probably a disappointment for Paul yesterday, but he had to know that today with the race is what people are going to be watching for and remembering.
So while Paul Tracy runs in 10th position, the Penske cars are still up front. And Elio is leading over Ryan Briscoe by 3.2 seconds. We go side by side, and we'll be back in a moment.
It's estimated that each year, up to 300,000 Canadians are hospitalized because they took their medications incorrectly, or not at all. Many of us simply forget to refill our prescriptions, like Sally here. That's why Rextall developed Canada's first service that automatically Rextall Reminder reminds you to refill your prescription. Take your medications seriously. We do. Rextall, a pharmacy first.
Edmonton, live all year.
It was perfect. I hit a ton of festivals. Blues and jazz, film, street performers, fantastic plays. Oh, and the Indy race. My heart is still pounding. You wouldn't believe the things I did there. Everything from world-class shopping, to history, to attractions. And the people were great. And what an easy city to move around in. I'm going back, and you should think about coming with me.
Edmonton, live all year.
CFL on TSN, Thursday starting at 7.
Jenkins, Scott Goodyear, Brian Pedigo, and Jan Bikus back at the Rexall Edmonton Indy from Edmonton, Alberta, where Elio Castroneves has a 3.1 second advantage on his teammate Ryan Briscoe. Serbia runs third, Dixon fourth. Justin Wilson is in 5th position. You can see that there's quite a bit of racetrack between the first and second place cars as Elio was able to pass Ryan, and since doing so has opened up a very, very comfortable lead here. We've been green all the way, 17 laps completed. There's the distance back to second. Here comes third place Serbia, 4th place Scott Dixon, and back in 5th, 11.4 seconds. Back is Justin Wilson driving for Newman Haas Flanagan Racing. Justin Wilson has some good starts. The finishes have not been so good. Started first at Long Beach, second at Watkins Glen. But look at the finishes, 19th at Long Beach and 25th at Watkins Glen, as problems have beset this team, but those finishes certainly not indicative of the way that this team and Justin have handled things this year.
Now, we saw him take his hand off the wheel and put thumbs up. And interesting to see maybe if they're still having a radio problem. We had word that they did have a radio problem just before the cars left the grid. So is that a hand signal because he's not getting an ability to transmit back? We'll have to see if the folks down pit lane can find that out for us. But that could be problems in the future, certainly from the fact that you cannot connect with the pits to understand for pitting for fuel, Bob.
Now, yesterday, Scott, as Townsend Bell has had a little bit of a problem. Doesn't look like he made any contact with anybody, and he continues. It's a local only there, and he's underway, so everything is in good shape. Now, yesterday, let's take a look first at how Townsend Bell got into trouble here.
The back end just starts to come around. Yeah, he did a great job by releasing his foot off the brakes as the car was starting to slide. If you keep your foot on the brakes too long, you will flat spot those tires, possibly even flatten them. So he was smart to actually release his foot off the brakes and then get back on the brakes again for a moment. That's a very experienced driver. As we're talking about Justin Wilson, Bob, he had some excitement yesterday as he just got it wrong and through some of these turns. And this is a track that's very much about rhythm. And as you can see, as you ride on board with him yesterday, just ends up collecting and hitting the wall on the left-hand side, which knocked him out of the qualifying round.
That's right. He had actually made, as Vitor Mira's in trouble, he had made the top 6, but wasn't able to go any further because of that little incident. Vitor Mira running in 21st position. This will bring out our first full course caution, and it comes on lap 19, so it's a pretty good time for these drivers to get a break and come in for fuel.
Well, I'm now thinking about guys like Paul Tracy, who was fast but just lost touch with the group in front because the group spread out here so quickly after the start, and also Tony Kanaan, who seemed to be very fast, but there again he's running in 17th. He welcomes this yellow also because it's going to pack everybody up and you get a chance to pass a few more cars after this restart.
Panther Racing is working this weekend without 2 of their key people, as earlier in the week, David Cripps, the engineer for the team, lost his mom. He went to England, and John Barnes stayed back home to do some negotiating for sponsorship. So the field now under caution, and we should be seeing full-scale pit stops here momentarily.
Cars do get great fuel mileage under the yellow siding, as they call it, and Honda has a great system to really close off some cylinders and save some fuel, and they sound really weird when they go by. I'm sure all those spectators sitting in the stands, Bob, listen to these things going by and going, what's wrong? The whole field here has got problems. Are they going to make this race? But as much as it sounds odd and off song, it's designed that way.
Well, the fans here have been used to hearing the turbocharged engines from the Champ Car World Series in the previous years, and these Indy cars do sound a lot different. The Delphi safety team has arrived at Vitor Mira to get him out of the tire barrier. The pit road is closed, so we'll sneak in a quick break here and go side by side once again. Stay with us.
Northlands, bringing the world to Edmonton. Profiling our city. Invested in the community. Delivering exceptional experiences. 2,500 events. 4 million visitors. Internationally acclaimed. Northlands, proud to bring you the Rextall Edmonton Indy.
Every day, people put themselves at risk unnecessarily by abusing drugs. Surprising thing is, they don't even know it. You see, many of us feel fine, so we don't refill our prescriptions, like Brad here. That's why Rextall developed Canada's first service that automatically
Rextall reminder
reminds you to refill your prescription. Take your medication seriously. We do. Rextall, a pharmacy first.
It was perfect. I hit a ton of festivals, Blues and jazz, film, street performers, fantastic plays. Oh, and the Indy race. My heart is still pounding. You wouldn't believe the things I did there. Everything from world-class shopping, to history, to attractions. And the people were great. And what an easy city to move around in. I'm going back, and you should think about coming with me.
Edmonton, live all year.
At City Center Airport, the Rexall Edmonton Indy, we are under our first full course caution. The pits have just opened, and so here they come in for the first stop. We get down to Jan Beekes.
Justin Wilson's going to make his stop, take some Firestone Firehawks, and I can confirm for you, Scott, there is a radio problem. That's why he was giving the thumbs up when he went by pit road. So they don't know what to change on this car. All they know is to put on some fresh Firestones, and let's get down to Brianne.
Well, Elio Castroneves just pulled into his pit stall tires. The fuel he asked for a half a turn or one complete turn of front wing to be taken out, and they are away.
Looks like that Scott Dixon is going to gain a position in the pit area. He was running fourth. He comes out third ahead of Oriol Serbia. So Elio gets out first ahead of Briscoe as we will take another break and go side by side in Edmonton, Alberta.
At the medicine shop, we look out for your health. And we keep your medications in order. At the medicine shop, we help sort out the side effects. We're your watchdog to harmful drug interactions. We're here for your health questions. Remember, when it matters most, it's the medicine shop, part of the Rexall family of pharmacies.
It's estimated that each year, up to 300,000 Canadians are hospitalized because they took their medications incorrectly, or not at all. Many of us simply forget to refill our prescriptions, like Sally here. That's why Rexall developed Canada's first service that automatically
Rexall Reminder
reminds you to refill your prescription. Take your medications seriously. We do. Rexall, a pharmacy first.
Well, former Brickyard champions Jeff Gordon and Tony Stewart look to end their winless streaks at the sport's most famous racetrack. But red-hot Kyle Busch, winner of 7 Sprint Cup races this season, stands in their way. The NASCAR Sprint Cup Series All-State 400 at the Brickyard on ESPN Sunday. Our coverage begins with NASCAR Countdown at 1 Eastern, and Jimmy Johnson will be on the pole for the All-State 400 at the Brickyard. Marco Andretti did not pit during this sequence. The 34 car of Jamie Camara has lost a left rear. Let's take a look at what happened to Jamie.
See, just leaving the pit lane, the wheel doesn't look like maybe it was put on correctly. The wheel nut might not have gotten fastened, or there could have been a problem with the wheel nut, but he really knew that as he was leaving and actually tried to keep out of the way from everybody else driving out of the pit lane.
And we understand that Paul Tracy may have had a problem leaving the pit area.
Looks like maybe just a delay on the right rear, possibly. Nope. He's going to try out some of the Edmonton real estate.
Jan, what happened down there?
He did that right as he went past our position near Justin Wilson, and he wasn't driving out there for fun. He was going around another car that was pulling out in fast lane. So thankfully, no harm, no foul. Now, funny enough, he has also lost radio communication. He can hear the team, but he cannot communicate back. So during that pit stop, they use hand signals and determined that Paul Tracy doesn't want any changes on that car at the moment.
He's dropped back to 14th position. That's Bruno Junqueira running right ahead of him, and behind him is A.J. Foyt, the 4th. So Paul Tracy did indeed lose some positions on that pit stop. 23 of 95 laps completed in this race. Now, Marco Andretti did not pit. Tony Kanaan is the 2nd car in line behind Marco, and 3rd is Buddy Rice. Then we get back to Elio Castroneves.
And Elliott on backwards have all made their pit stops, and you see the second car on your screen, Tony Kanaan, and he is running a different color livery there this weekend, Bob, with a Frank's energy drink on the side of it, and it's probably, I can't remember the last time that he's not been aboard a 7-Eleven machine, the Big Gulp.
Been at least 5 years since he did not run a green and white car. Brienne?
I spoke to George Klotz, who calls the shots for Tony Kanaan just before the race, and he emphasized how much luck they were going to need to come from the back of the pack to the front. And taking advantage of this yellow is exactly what he meant by that. He wanted to get Tony's car into clean air, into fresh racetrack. He knows that this car is fast. It was third quick this morning, trying to keep it up there. Jan Bikas?
Vitor Mira's on pit road with a suspected damaged steering arm. So they're going to the right front to see if they can effect repairs, but he's already been sitting on pit road quite a long time, losing a lot of time, unfortunately, for the National Guard Delphi entry.
Well, is this good strategy for Marco, Tony, and Buddy Rice? Because it won't be too much longer, you would think, that they would have to come in for a pit stop as the green flag comes out.
And that just remains to be seen what plays out here in the future, Bob, as far as future yellows, when they fall, and this is part of the strategy. It's a gamble, as we see Tony Kanaan looking maybe just a little bit faster than Marco in a couple of sections, but you know, this is where all the team managers and the guys sitting back in the pits have to make some decisions, because as a driver right now, when the green flag drops, all you're about is just trying to go fast.
Andretti Green Racing didn't have a particularly successful, at least qualifying effort here at Edmonton, and last weekend at Mid-Ohio, that was the only race in 2008 where none of the Andretti Green drivers finished in the top 5. Elio Castroneves just went by Buddy Rice to take third position, and now Ryan Briscoe is all over Buddy.
Buddy doesn't look like he has the same speed as the Penske machines, but ran a very smart line going into the turn just to take away that inside line from Ryan Briscoe. You mentioned Andretti with the Andretti Green team. You know, now we have another Andretti family member leading laps in Canada. It's been a very successful time for Andretti's overall in Canada. I remember Michael winning so many times in Toronto.
Absolutely. On board there for a moment with Ryan Briscoe as we looked upon Buddy Rice, who is now running in 4th position, Jan.
And he's been struggling all weekend with a lack of overall grip, but the team last night, the crew made a major change in the setup, took a big gamble, rolled the dice, and obviously the car has become much better here today. Now, he is lighter on fuel. It's not like you're looking at apples versus apples, but what a great opportunity to run up at the front.
And Buddy Rice has looked very, very good at times for Dreyer and Brian Bolt Racing this year.
Really has, you know, and I've watched him going around different venues like Mid-Ohio or Watkins Glen, and you know, you take the motor scooter out and you go out and look at different corners and watch the drivers go through, and more times than not you can say that Buddy Rice is driving the most perfect line out of anybody that's out there. Just a very smooth driver, and he makes it look very easy, as we're now on board with Justin Wilson. And he's looking forward to Oriol Servia. Justin Wilson is running in 8th, Oriol Servia in 7th, and both those drivers are turning about the identical lap time. And because there's not that many slow turns here, it's pretty difficult sometimes to be able to make a pass, Jan Bikas, because there's not many times you get to go into hard braking zones.
Hard braking zones are definitely what you're looking for, but the good news for Justin Wilson, they've been able to fix the radio. I didn't actually see anybody go to the cockpit during the pit stop itself, but they do, for whatever reason, they have fixed the radio communication for Justin Wilson, which is a pretty big deal, Scott, when it comes to fuel numbers and strategy. It's not so much about handling, but as you know, this race, especially with not much yellow, could come down to some fuel numbers, and you need the radio for that.
Certainly, and you know, just a little bit of help in the pit stops with maybe changing wing angles during the pit stops, and if you don't have that opportunity to radio in ahead of time, then the crew does not know what to do. So all's now good for Justin Wilson.
See there on the graphic that Justin Wilson is a former winner at this racetrack. He started third and finished first in 2006 in the Champ Car World Series. And the 19 car of Mario Moraes, he's got problems on the right rear.
That's a Canadian discombobulation, Bob.
Is that what you call that?
That is not going to work, okay?
Yeah, I'm not sure what you call that.
That's a dirt tracker.
Let's see if we can. Oh, we got.
Oh, no, it was actually already broken. He went into the turn and something happened. Now, we don't know if he's made contact with another car earlier. You see on the side where it says Sonny's Barbecue. On the side pod, he's got some wheel marks there. So he has been in some contact with some other vehicles out there. And this is not a contact sport.
He was running in the 22nd position when the problem happened on the Sonny's car. He had a great qualifying effort, started this race in 10th position, his best start of 2008. Ryan Briscoe has still not gotten around Buddy Rice. Buddy continues to run in 4th place. There are the top 3. Marco Andretti leads, Tony Kanaan is 2nd, and Elio is in 3rd. And we're going to have a full course caution because Hideki Muto has crashed, and it looks like he has crashed rather hard.
That is the first crash for Hideki in a race in his rookie season this year. He has had quite a few offs in practice, as we saw even yesterday, but this is the first one you can slate down to in a racing condition. Now the back end's already gone around on him for whatever reason.
Oh yeah.
And luckily those tires are there, which softens the blow, but certainly made those corner workers move a little faster than they're used to. And
it didn't lessen much of the damage on the race car because Hideki is going to have to give it up here. He finished in 2nd position in Iowa this year. He started 3rd at Nashville, so has had some very successful runs in his rookie season. There's Mario Moraes' car, the 19, as it's being taken behind the wall. And we have another full course caution, and this really works out pretty well for the guys that didn't pit, Marco, Tony, and Buddy Rice. So under our 2nd caution, we will take another break side by side to be back at the Rextall Edmonton Indy.
Rule number 51, don't be afraid to get your hands dirty. Number 18, finish what you start. Number 95, play as hard as you work.
I'm Danica Patrick, IndyCar driver and GoDaddy girl. When you want to be bigger than what you can be by yourself, it takes a team to build a company, to build a brand. With a team, you really can just do more. We all want to win, and that means success. The GoDaddy team is right for me because they're the #1 registrar there is. I want to be with the best, and that's simple. It's GoDaddy. .com names as low as $1.99. When you have something to say it at GoDaddy.com.
Every day, people put themselves at risk unnecessarily by abusing drugs. Surprising thing is, they don't even know it. You see, many of us feel fine, so we don't refill our prescriptions, like Brad here. That's why Rextall developed Canada's first service that automatically
Rextall reminder
reminds you to refill your prescription. Take your medications seriously. We do. Rextall, a pharmacy first.
Back in Edmonton, Alberta, as the pits have opened, and well, 2 of the cars that we expected to see come in. Let's go down to Jan Beekes.
Buddy Rice is going to take the opportunity, as you said, to make this stop under caution. He is called in and wants no changes. Isn't that a great thing to hear after you've struggled all weekend? Let's get up to Tony Kanaan and Brianne.
Tony Kanaan, tires and fuel. He will make a tire pressure adjustment. They were talking about making a front wing adjustment, but just decided to forego that to save on track position. Guys, Marco decided to stay out on the racetrack, trying to maintain and capitalize on the fact that he is currently in the lead, trying to hold off teammate Tony Kanaan.
That's a bit of a surprise to me. I thought Marco would definitely come in.
A little bit of split strategy.
I guess so.
No risk it, no biscuit.
And And so Marco continues to lead this race, having not pitted since the drop of the green flag. We'll be right back. We go side by side.
Edmonton, live all year.
Series from Sun Valley, BC, tomorrow at noon on TSN.
Race here in Edmonton, Alberta. There will be 4 races remaining in the 2008 season. We will return in 2 weeks from the Kentucky Speedway, Saturday, August the 9th, 6 o'clock Eastern on ESPN2, with the IndyCar 300 at Kentucky, presented by GoDaddy.com. So well-deserved weekend off for these drivers this coming week. Marco Andretti has chosen not to come in for, now how long can he go? We have had a total of 8 laps under caution.
Well, let's say maybe another 10 to 15.
Well, he has led 7 races this year, a total of 290 laps. And look at the first 2 years of his IndyCar career.
Very fast, and with the Andretti name, had the opportunity to search around a little bit in Europe for the possibility of a Formula One ride. Had quite a few tests over there in the Honda program in recent years, and just sometime last year that all went quiet. So we don't know if that's still on the horizon for him, or if he's now decided that even at still at his young age to continue just in the Indy cars and no longer have F1 as a goal.
There is Hideki Muto's very badly damaged car, and that is the reason that we are under our second full course caution. The Penske team is on a roll in terms of poles. They have won pole positions the last 4 consecutive races, and that is the subject of our GoDaddy.com trivia. What is the IndyCar Series record for consecutive poles won by teammates? Think about it.
Oh, this is usually where I put my hand in the air because I want to answer it, but I don't know that one, so
you don't know that one?
Nope.
Oh, come on, Scott.
I don't know. 4 or 5 times.
Yeah.
Okay. What teams? That's a good one.
Good question. Penske drivers started from pole 5 times in a row in 2006, but one of those poles was awarded on points, so he didn't actually earn it. So there you go. Elio is second behind Marco Andretti. Team Penske this season, 2 poles for Castro Neves and 2 for Ryan Briscoe. But the win column shows 0 for Elio, but he has led 337 laps of this season.
Now, who would have said that we got this far in the season and Elliott would not have won a race? That's amazing.
And being second in points. He has had a very consistent year, but man, would he love to put a win in the column. Here we go, and the green flag comes out. Elio had a notion to head to the outside of Marco, or at least give him a little bit of an indication that he was there.
That's in turns 11 and 12, so he better slow it down. The green's not going to come out until he gets through 13 and 14 here shortly.
There's turn 13 and 14, and here is the green flag as it's waving wildly. Now Elio will take the advantage, and he takes the lead from Marco heading into turn number 1.
Carried so much speed that he got to the middle of the turn and just had to slow the car down just a little bit to make sure that Marco didn't pop back on the inside of him.
Briscoe running there in third position behind Marco. Scott Dixon is behind Ryan. We're on board with Ryan Briscoe.
Watch their hands. Their hands do not come off the steering wheel. They just simply keep their feet. Their hands are just going to the paddles all the time. They took the shifters out of these cars for this season. The drivers love it. You see his right fingers are upshifting, his left fingers are downshifting. Your hands do not come off the steering wheel whatsoever. And drivers really appreciate that in road courses, Bob, but especially here in Edmonton, because this place is so bumpy. You know, Paul Tracy, who's run here before and also run at the Cleveland track back in the kart and champ car days, he said this place is so fast and so rough, it's almost like Edmonton, or excuse me, it's almost like Cleveland but on steroids. I thought that was a great comment.
Great quote. You can see how the track is relatively smooth in some portions, but on the other hand, very, very rough in some areas. And to think that you're hustling this car around this 1.9-mile circuit for 95 laps, that has to take a tremendous amount of physical stamina to do that.
Well, there is some parts of this racetrack that were actually paved and put down, and they have some permanent curving on there. And then there's some rough sections like we see right here, because this is the airport section.
Now here's the replay of Elio grabbing the lead on the restart from Andretti.
A little surprise to Marco. He was about ready to turn in, and Elio just arrived there, and what I like to call the, pardon me, excuse me, I'm playing through.
More from Brienne on Elio.
Well, Bob, Elio Castroneves tied a record today. All it took was leading one lap, and he's far surpassed that so far. By leading today's race, he ties Sam Hornish Jr. for the most races led in the IndyCar Series. They both have led 67 races in the series history. And if things continue to go Elio's way, he's also the only driver this season to be running at the end of every single race. Trying to keep that up today. Guys?
This is his 110th IndyCar start and his 108th consecutive IndyCar start. Elio Castroneves has separated himself by 2.1 seconds since he took the lead from Marco. Here comes Marco. And it looks like that Ryan is under fire from Scott Dixon, who is right there. And by the way, should Dixon lead 32 points or 32 laps in this race, he would become the 5th driver to lead 2,000 laps in his career. He's that much short. Ryan Briscoe, we talked about it on our qualifying show yesterday about how at one point of the season people were thinking, well, how long is Ryan going to be with Team Penske? Team Penske isn't going to put up with the finishes that he put together in the early part of the season, but then he began a streak that took him to the checkered flag twice, one on an oval and one on a street course, a road course. But Elio Castroneves is winless this year, and so our question to Elio, when is that all going to change around?
We'll be knocking on the door. One day this door will be open. And I'm telling you, man, when this door open, because winning, it gives you a lot of points, it's going to be a big move. So just wait for the right time. We can't be frustrated. We have to keep pushing and knocking on the door, and this door will be open.
So Elio is just waiting, and today could be the day. 27 races, 8 poles, 15 top 5, 722 laps led, but no victory since he won in the streets of St. Petersburg in 2007.
You know, he talked about the confidence, and not only the points, but also the confidence. And I sat and spoke with him when he was eating lunch at Watkins Glen. So we wait for the second place car coming through now as Ryan Briscoe has now passed Marco Andretti. And you can see there was frustration on Elio's face, Bob. He just simply said, you know something, I'm not doing anything different, but you know something, it's not coming.
Here's the pass, and it occurred on the front stretch. Nice. Going into turn 1.
Oh, a nice wide angle turn. We talked about this scenario almost like it's an oval track. You can take that wide entry because the track is 75 feet wide in this section.
That is the same part of the racetrack that Elio passed Marco, but in a different manner.
Tells you that Marco's car may not be working so well in that fast section. coming from about 168, 70 miles an hour, roughly down to about 85 for that turn.
We're on the 39th lap of the race. Marco has not stopped for fuel yet. He has been out there for 38 laps. You've got to think that his pit stop is going to come pretty soon. Of course, he's waiting for a caution that may not come.
My rough calculations say 45 to 48, so he'll probably make a liar out of me here shortly and pit about 1 or 2, but it depends on the fuel mileage he's getting when he was running and also how good a fuel mileage he was getting underneath the yellow at the same time. Now, we talked about the drivers having the adjustability on the steering wheel to turn the fuel back to make fuel mileage, but they can also, as a driver, get off the gas just a little bit earlier going into the turns, and when they apply their foot on the throttle coming out of the turns, they can do it smoother. All those techniques use just a little bit less fuel to help conserve.
Notice at the top of your screen in the running order, Paul Tracy is up to 9th, Tony Kanaan 14th, and Marco is finally going to pit. Brienne.
Marco Andretti pulling down pit road. This is where we find out if the gamble by Marco Andretti and his crew will pay off. They stayed out because they thought the leaders would take up too big of a lead on them on the lead lap. They've come in for tires and fuel only. Marco Andretti is back out. We'll see if it works.
That was a nice smooth stop for the Andretti Green Team.
That's why I'm not calculating the fuel numbers, Bob, because I would have had him run out of fuel.
Team Penske is up front. Helio Castroneves is the leader, and Ryan Briscoe is running in second position. We'll go side by side and be back in just a moment to Edmonton.
Northlands, bringing the world to Edmonton. Profiling our city. Invested in the community. Delivering exceptional experiences. 2,500 events. 4 million visitors. Internationally acclaimed. Northlands, proud to bring you the Rexall Edmonton Indy.
Dougie.
Dude, the game.
Nah, I'm registering domain names at GoDaddy.com.
Dude.
Registering domains at GoDaddy is like, it's like...
sweet love?
Yes.
Right, like your first kiss?
Yup.
Like rose petals on satin sheets?
Mm-hmm. There.
Oh, okay.
It's estimated that each year, up to 300,000 Canadians are hospitalized because they took their medications incorrectly, or not at all. Many of us simply forget to refill our prescriptions, like Sally here. That's why Rexall developed Canada's first service that automatically... Rexall Reminder reminds you to refill your prescription. Take your medications seriously. We do. Rexall, a pharmacy first.
Well, tonight at 7:30 Eastern on ESPN, the NASCAR Nationwide Series at O'Reilly Raceway Park, just down the street from the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Sunday, 10 a.m. Eastern on ESPN2, NASCAR Now. Sunday at 1 o'clock, the NASCAR Sprint Cup Series, the All-State 400 at the Brickyard. And Sunday at 10 o'clock Eastern on ESPN2, NASCAR Now. And that's the reason that I am here in this chair, because Marty Reed, the regular guy, is going to be calling the NASCAR Nationwide Series tonight at O'Reilly Raceway Park. Great overhead shot of the leader of the race, Helio Castroneves, with a 6.5-second advantage on Ryan Briscoe. I'm Bob Jenkins with Scott Goodyear, Brienne Pedigo, and John Beekus. At Edmonton, Alberta, the Rexall Edmonton Indy, Helio Castroneves leads Ryan Briscoe, Scott Dixon, Oriol Serbia, and Justin Wilson. Paul Tracy's running in 8th position. Danica Patrick running in 12th spot. Tony Kanaan is in 13th. And all these guys are running very, very close to each other.
The This is a great time. This is when you're trying to get the most out of your car, and you keep pushing and pushing and pushing. You look in the mirror, and you haven't gained any distance on the driver in the back. So it can also be a very frustrating time for a driver, Bob.
Pretty good battle, Brienne.
Danica Patrick in 12th position. Right behind her is teammate Tony Kanaan. The team is a little frustrated with Danica right now, yelling at her to let Tony Kanaan by. She simply will not give up the position. They keep reminding her that Tony is on a different fuel strategy, a different pit strategy than she is, and to give up the position. We'll see if that actually happens. This is interesting, guys, because earlier in the race, Tony Kanaan was behind his other teammate, Marco Andretti. They kept telling Marco, let Tony by, and he wouldn't. In fact, Marco got on the radio and said, guys, if I hear move over one more time, we're going to have big problems.
Well, you know, I think this goes along with the thinking in the team right now is the only guy that has a shot at the championship is Tony Kanaan. Third in points behind Scott Dixon and Elio Castroneves. So what they're trying to do is just to get him up forward a little faster than maybe hanging around behind your teammate. And you have to think back, Bob, how many times has a guy like Tony Kanaan done things for teammates to give them positions or to move over and let them win races because he is a team player. He always says whatever's best for my team. Right now, they're asking the teammates to do what's best for Tony.
Well, she's the lead car of their group right now with Hideki Muto out of the race. But on the other hand, how many times does a race driver say, I can't give up the position? You know, I'm a race driver. I'm thinking about myself. I want to do well myself, and so just don't want to give up the position.
And I agree. I mean, as a race driver, you never want to let over. Now, if this was maybe 10 laps left to go, there might be other issues, but I just want to be around the transporter lane today when it's all over.
Paul Tracy is having a very, very respectable race. He is up to 8th position. Once again, this is a Vision Racing entry prepared by Derek Walker Racing, and let's hope that Derek is able to put something together for the 2009 season. Since the restart, Tracy has gained the most positions, 3. Jan Beekes.
And Paul Tracy not having any issues with his teammates at the moment. His only issue continues to be the radio. They're using hand signals to try and get his fuel mileage where they want it. So Paul Tracy with some lockup into turn number 1. He's pushing really hard, Scott, at the same time trying to save fuel. They've told him as best they can on the pit board, Paul, we have to save fuel during this segment. So we may see more speed out of Paul Tracy once they turn him loose with the fuel numbers.
Well, and Jan, he is just using that car right now, bouncing off all the curbs. It sort of reminds me of watching him at places like Surfer's Paradise, where he not only just sort of goes over the curb, he launches them. Remember in qualifying yesterday, Bob, I mean, he actually didn't go over it with the suspension of the side pod. He went over the curb with the center of the nose. I mean, he was getting full points for that.
But that's one of the things I like about Paul Tracy. He will give you 100%, 100% of the time. Well, let's go back and relive the last couple of days and see some of the incidents that Paul has been involved in.
You know, you can't fault him for this because he's trying to get up to speed for teams and drivers that have been running 12, 13 races so far this year. Remember, he did run Long Beach, but in a different format, with a different car and a different engine. His first time in this car and engine program, and with a team that is also entering for the very first time as we see him launch over the curbs again. So, you know, I think if you have to give, you know, any type of award here this weekend to driver and team, it has to go to Paul Tracy and also to Derek Walker.
Absolutely. His finishes here at Edmonton, his best finish was in 2005, a 3rd, and the other 2 years he competed here in 2006 and 2007, he finished in 5th position. Justin Wilson. This is the 4th and 5th place runners at the moment. Moments ago, on board with Justin.
What a great move. Surprises but pays the price because drives it in too deep in a very textbook style pass. and a very textbook style opportunity to come back and dive on the inside. Remember, these are all great road course drivers, and as a driver knows, if he's going on hard into the turn and the driver overdrives the turn on the inside and passes him, you just simply slide back on the inside, and that's what Mario Servia did.
Justin Wilson running in 5th position, about 13.7 seconds behind the leader. Justin Wilson, again the winner here in 2006, has 2 other top 4 finishes at this racetrack. Great onboard shot. Nearing the halfway point of this race. Elio Castroneves with a 9-second advantage on Ryan Briscoe. Our Firestone lap leaders show you that Elio Castroneves has led 33 at this point. Marco 11th. Ryan Briscoe, pole sitter, led the first 3, and Tony Kanaan also credited with leading 1 lap. So at the halfway point, we'll take a break and go side by side in the Townsend Bell has found the tire barrier. Townsend was running in 17th position. This is the other Dreyer and Reinbold entry. And he has buried that car in the tire barrier, and that is going to bring out our 3rd full course caution. So that will mean that the leaders will be coming in for another pit stop.
William Rast that you see on the side of that car is a jean that you'll often see Townsend Bell wearing. He almost got away with it, but ended up just catching it and turning it into the tire barrier. And the William Rast company is owned partially by Justin Timberlake, a friend of Justin's, and Townsend are together on that program. I'll tell you, it's unfortunate that car's deep enough in there right now that there's definitely going to be a lot of damage on the front. Even if they pull him out, that's not going to be something they're going to be easily fixed and keep going.
This is Townsend's 6th race of 2008. His best start was at Indianapolis. He started in 12th position. His best finish was at Richmond on the 3/4 mile oval there. He came home in 8th position. Of course, Milka Duno also on the Dreyer and Reinbold team and drives the 23 when Townsend doesn't.
It's pretty bad when you need a Honda Ridgeline pickup truck to start pulling you out of the tire barrier. It's not what a driver wants to have happen.
Third full course caution of this event. We are past the halfway point. And you can see the nose of that car has been completely knocked off, so I'm not sure that Townsend is going to be able to restart this race. We will see. Pits are closed at the moment, so they're going to take at least 1 more lap before being given the green light to go in for service. Once again, a reminder that the Allstate 400 at the Brickyard is on at 1 o'clock tomorrow afternoon on ESPN HD as Jeff Gordon goes for his 5th victory in the Allstate 400 at the Brickyard, and Tony Stewart goes for his 3rd win. But of course, Kyle Busch is the man who has won 7 Sprint Cup races this season. Coverage begins with NASCAR Countdown at 1 o'clock Eastern Time.
And Bob, right now on lap 51, if everybody, which they will, come in for fuel, then they'll still be a little bit short, probably about 7 to 9 or 10 laps short for making it to the end. So they need a splash and go unless we end up getting another yellow somewhere along the way.
Right. The fuel mileage increases dramatically, doesn't it, under caution? The pits, by the way, are open now.
And that's why you see a lot of drivers, Tony Kanaan especially, when he's up front, he's got his nose right underneath the back of the pace car, doing everything he can to try and save just a little bit of fuel.
Every drop is valuable. They come off of turn number 12. watch everybody come in for the stop. Jan Beekes, they're headed toward you.
And Paul Tracy has the very first pit, so the leaders go by me, then Paul Tracy will duck in from 8th position. So we'll call Paul Tracy's stop while the leaders make their way at 60 miles an hour down pit road. Paul Tracy wants no changes, but now he has to weave his way past all the cars to get the
Helio Castroneves will take 4 tires and fuel and will take a half-turn front wing out if there's time. It looks like guys, they opted not to make that half-turn adjustment and save track position.
And Scott Dixon beat both of the Penske drivers out. But Tony Kanaan did not pit. He's been off sequence all race and still is. There he is.
And that's being a function of having to change that motor in the qualifying incident that he had, starting at the back, going off sequence, a different strategy, and he just hopes for some more yellows to play out.
52 of 95 laps completed in the Rextall Edmonton Indy. We go side by side.
This TSN program is presented in high-definition television by JVC. JVC HD, the perfect experience.
Every day, people put themselves at risk unnecessarily by abusing drugs. Surprising thing is, they don't even know it. You see, many of us feel fine, so we don't refill our prescriptions, like Brad here. That's why Rexall developed Canada's first service that automatically
Rexall reminder
reminds you to refill your prescription. Take your medications seriously. We do. Rexall, a pharmacy first.
It was perfect. I hit a ton of festivals. Blues and jazz, film, street performers, fantastic plays. Oh, and the Indy race. My heart is still pounding. You wouldn't believe the things I did there. Everything from world-class shopping, to history, to attractions. And the people were great. And what an easy city to move around in. I'm going back, and you should think about coming with me.
Edmonton, live all year.
At the medicine shop, we look out for your health. And we keep your medications in order. At the medicine shop, we help sort out the side effects. We're your watchdog to harmful drug interactions. We're here for your health questions. Remember, when it matters most, it's the medicine shop, part of the Rexall family of pharmacies.
All the stars of the IndyCar Series are in Edmonton, Alberta, and Mario Dominguez has a problem. The right rear is missing from that car. This is under caution, but Dominguez is going to have to get the right rear seated, and it could be more serious than that, right, Jan?
Yes, and of course the problem is obvious, and that was during the pit stop. They could not get the right rear tightened properly. Sent him, he felt right away that it was loose and tried to limp the car around to pit road, and of course now the wheel has departed. This is not an oval, this is a road course, so it has a differential. Normally you could drive a car with 3 tires back to the pits, but that wheel that you can see, that exposed brake disc, just spun and spun without having the locked rear end like you have on an oval. Let's get to Brianne.
Jan, you never know who you might find in the pits of Helio Castroneves. Today we have Mark Cuban, fellow Dancing with the Stars alumni and also owner of the Dallas Mavericks. Mark, what brings you to Edmonton?
Well, I was here for a mixed martial arts show, and I had no idea the race was going on, and someone told me that, you know, he had races here, and I was like, I gotta call Helio. So we hooked it up, talked, we hadn't caught up in a while, so I gotta come out here and support my boy, and he's running a great race.
Now, you've got a basketball team. We hear you're trying to buy the Chicago Cubs. Any chance we're going to find you interested in a race team?
You know, I'm more of an infield guy when it gets real nasty and drinking beer and screaming things, but I'm a fan, and I'll stay a fan. I have been for a long time since I went to school in Indiana, but one sport, maybe 2 is enough.
Glad to have you here.
Okay, thanks.
Guys?
Well, that was the point I was going to make. He's a graduate of Indiana University, so, you know, he's a good guy. And
where did you go to, Bob?
Well, but, you know, speaking of being proud, you should be very proud of your fellow countrymen because they have turned out in droves to support this great race here in Edmonton.
This place is packed from one end to the other. The suites were all sold out. I know that there was a lot of hype before coming up here, and without a doubt, Paul Tracy has added a lot to that because his situation of joining the team right now. And see a lot of the fine countrymen right there. They have been here for practice and qualifying, and it's been great.
Sure has. All 3 days have been very, very well attended. Paul Tracy back to 10th position. Here is his pit stop, and oh man, a very close call with Danica. Ryan Hunter-Reay.
It really is a narrow pit lane in the sense that the lanes are very narrow. You have obviously the area you do your service work in your pit box, and then you have a transfer over lane, and then you have the high-speed lane. And Jan Bikas, Paul Tracy just ran out a little bit of real estate there.
Well, part of the problem is, you heard me say he has the very first pit because they assign the pits on owners' points, and obviously they have none. It's their very first race, and so when you're leaving the pits, you have to kind of play dodgeball for those that are pulling out, and they're trying to swing around tires, and sometimes they do get in that fast lane. The good news is, even with all that ducking and weaving, he picked up 2 spots on those who did stop. The only problem for Paul Tracy, they have tried to tell him as best they can on the pit board, you got to save more fuel, have to find a way. And Scott, as you know, you need experience to save fuel in these cars. It's not just the fuel mixture, you got to know the special tricks for each type of engine.
And that's what we were talking about before, about how you drive it. And Paul Tracy, I'm sure, has talked to a lot of people to try to find out what you need to do, but now he's just warming his tires up, and he's looking to go green, Bob.
Tony Kanaan did not pit, and so he is the leader of the race as the field gets set to take the green flag once again. Paul Tracy running there in the 10th position. Is Kanaan. A.J. Foyt, the 4th, is running in 2nd place, and Buddy Rice is 3rd, Ed Carpenter 4th, and none of those drivers pitted. I don't believe Ed Carpenter is in the queue, as you would say. There he is. And the green flag comes out. So here we go back to racing. Kanaan is the leader. Foyt running 2nd. And seeing, I believe that was Mario Marias going to the inside and passing a car. But here is Kanaan, who is running up front once again after starting in last position. Been 25 laps since he last pitted. TK has a record 63 top 5 finishes in his career. Looking for another one here today.
So earlier in the weekend that he was just frustrated because they didn't have the speed as a team here. Unload off the trailer as fast as maybe he would have wanted to, and was looking for the balance between the front and the rear of the car. But it seems like now he's being able to stretch just a little bit away from A.J. Foyt, the 4th. Key thing right now is where he will be in all this queue of going off strategy.
Well, we hear that Ryan Briscoe apparently spun. So he drops back in the order.
And we talked about earlier on in the show that what we're watching for is because this track is so bumpy, is so abusive, that you just have to be offline somewhat, just a little bit, and you can turn around and lose the car quickly here.
Going to the inside of Ed Carpenter.
Oh, there's Dan Weldon sneaking on the inside, trying to take advantage of a traffic situation. Bumps into Ed Carpenter in the Menards car, in turn turns around and knocks off Ryan Briscoe. So thank you very little.
Briscoe back to 17th spot. And Kanaan is no longer the leader of the race, it would appear. A.J. Foyt IV is shown as the leader. Well, how about that?
This has to be the first time he's ever led on a road course that I could ever think about.
Let's find out a little bit more from Jan Beekes on A.J. Foyt.
Well, speaking of A.J., he has made tremendous progress on the road courses, partly because Tony George has brought Brian Herta, of course, a road course specialist in lots of different type of race cars, here on the team to help Vision Racing. He's been working with them all weekend, and of course Paul Tracy has also been sharing information with the drivers. Now he's leading obviously because of pit strategy, but has made huge strides in his road course driving abilities, and in fact says he's really, it's not one of these things where he feels he has to learn by default. He really wants to get fast on the road courses.
We're showing a replay of what happened to Tony Kanaan, who was leading the race and spun down in turn number 1, it looked like.
You know, the car just comes around on him in that situation, and that's a shame in the sense that he doesn't want to find himself back here having to use a lot of throttle, which means using a lot of gas to run amongst these group. It's a lot easier when you're running out front by yourself to conserve fuel.
And Briscoe has pitted Brienne.
Roger Penske called his driver in to top it off with fuel, and he is already out. I also surmise it was to get a better look at the car, make sure there is no damage.
Now he can go the distance.
There's a good chance with 37 laps to go. They were, that's on the very edge, maybe a couple of laps past from what we heard they thought they could make if they run it in a lean position. But, you know, just like Penske, to try and make a difference on the strategy between the cars, and a good thing to make sure there's nothing broken in the car, send them out.
So Foyt leads. Kanaan is running second. There are a couple of one-lap car between first and second, and Scott Dixon runs in third. Stay with us. We'll be right back as we go side by side.
Edmonton, live all year. Edmonton, live all year.
Back at Edmonton, Alberta, a lot of things can change in a short amount of time on a racetrack like this. A.J. Foyt IV was in the lead, and now he has back to third position. Here's Tony Kanaan, has led 8 of the 60 laps in this event. Off sequence as far as pit stops are concerned. It's been 30 laps since he came in for a stop. There's Scott Dixon, who is running in the second position now. And here's how it happened.
Mario Moraes had just made a move underneath A.J. Foyt IV, and then A.J. sort of had to go slow through the turn, and who took advantage of it? Well, the two road course experts, Bob, Tony Kanaan, and Scott Dixon was also there and probably read that what was going to happen maybe a lap or two before. So here's Graham Rahal, who had fixed his car from an earlier off at the beginning of the race and now finds himself visiting the tires once again.
And he is heavily damaged that car in the rear end. You see the wing all bent up. Here's what happened to Graham.
See him just a bit further back there, and you're going to see E.J. Vizo coming in. Thinks that he's going to pass 2 or 3 cars at the same time. That one's not going to work, and bowling for dollars, and guess who ends up losing that battle? That won't be a very popular move by E.J. Vizo, because there has been quite a few drivers not pleased with his performance in the past, including Vitor Mira at Watkins Glen. Although I did not agree with that scenario, I didn't really think that EJ should have done what he had done, but in the end result, he's going to have some discussion about that at the end of the day, I'm sure.
We mentioned that Rextall was the primary sponsor on this Graham Rahal car, but you also see there on the left on the engine cowling the logo of the Edmonton Oilers of the NHL. It's Elio Castro-Neves in third. AJ Foyt, the fourth, now is back to fourth position. And it's been 40 laps since he made a pit stop, so he should be coming in before too much longer. And looks like the pits are open. Here comes Kanaan. Dixon will stay out. Foyt's going to come in. Brienne Pettigo, looks like that Kanaan is headed your way.
Tony Kanaan pulling down pit road. He has tires laid out. I would be very surprised if he takes them. Just a splash of fuel would do it to get him through the rest of the race. He is putting on 4 tires, filling up his number 11 car. A much longer stop than we have anticipated. And he's out.
Looked like a little bit of trouble on the left rear there, Scott.
And that's just enough to hold you back and lose a couple of positions, leaving the pits themselves. Now, Tony has to hope that the guys up front will end up having to come in and it goes green for the remainder of the race. But this is all the strategies that all the teams decide that they have to play out. And as we mentioned before, when you had a car like Tony Kanaan did that was fast, but had to start at the back because of the engine change, you have to run a split strategy.
Scott Dixon, the points leader, is leading this race over Elio Castro-Neves and Tony Kanaan. We go side by side. We'll be back in a moment.
Every day, people put themselves at risk unnecessarily by abusing drugs. Surprising thing is, they don't even know it. You see, many of us feel fine, so we don't refill our prescriptions, like Brad here. That's why Rextall developed Canada's first service that automatically
Rextall reminder
reminds you to refill your prescription. Take your medications seriously. We do. Rextall, a pharmacy first.
It was perfect. I hit a ton of festivals. Blues and jazz, film, street performers, fantastic plays. Oh, and the Indy race. My heart is still pounding. You wouldn't believe the things I did there. Everything from world-class shopping to history to attractions. And the people were great. And what an easy city to move around in. I'm going back, and you should think about coming with me.
Edmonton, live all year.
You're going on. You're going on.
With available 268 horsepower, ultra-low emissions, and Honda's reputation for safety, it's not just a powerful car, but a powerful statement. Introducing the all-new 2008 Accord from Honda. A new level of exhilaration. A new level of Accord.
The stars of the NASCAR Nationwide Series are set to battle it out under the lights at Indy's other track. The young guns like the red-hot Joey Logano, the man who's second in the points, Brad Keselowski, and 18-year-old Landon Castle will try to fend off Cup stars like defending series champion Carl Edwards, 5-time winner this season Kyle Busch, and the points leader Clint Bowyer. Can local hero Jason Leffler defend his win from last year at O'Reilly Raceway Park? We'll tune in and see tonight, 7:30 Eastern on ESPN.
It's a big weekend of racing on the ESPN family of channels. The Nationwide Series tonight at O'Reilly Raceway Park. Tomorrow at 10 o'clock Eastern on ESPN2 NASCAR Now. Then at 1 o'clock, the Sprint Cup Series All-State 400 at the Brickyard. And Sunday at 10 Eastern on ESPN2 NASCAR Now. Lots of activity going on. And we're glad you could join us from Edmonton, Alberta. Here's Jan Mikas.
With Graham Rahal. And Graham, I don't know if you've seen a replay yet. It looked like 3 cars all going for the apex at the same time.
Wow, I mean, you know, I don't think you can even say it's 3. I mean, I was on my own there. I mean, all you see is that, I mean, look, Viso's so deep, it's not even funny. And I mean, the league needs to figure out how to calm a couple of these guys down. Viso, Moraes, I mean, they're out of control. They don't belong here right now. And it's unfortunate because, I mean, it ruined our race. Obviously, having Rextall, you know, just great sponsors on board for this event only. And that's what happens. You get taken out in the first lap by a guy on the outside who has absolutely no chance. And then, you know, Viso finally, you know, puts an end to our day.
And that was tough. And what about the first incident on the start of the race itself, Moraes?
Well, I mean, you know, I haven't seen that either, so I can't say too much, but he was on the outside. I could just see his front end, you know, basically clear my left rear. I mean, you can't clear a pass like that, especially going into a right-hander. It's not going to happen. And as I said, I mean, this guy, he's out of control right now, and someone needs to teach him how to calm down.
Thank you, Grant.
Thanks.
And we have learned from race control and the IndyCar officials that E.J. Viso will be stopped and held in the pits for 15 seconds.
And sometimes it's a drive-through, sometimes it's a stop and go, and that 15 seconds means that they're getting pretty serious on it. Remember, he did have a penalty at Watkins Glen for unavoidable contact. So, but he must have a sight in the front of his car because he got it pretty good.
Yeah, he sure did. Yeah, the drivers there is E.J. Viso. He's on the lead lap, running in 18th position, but will have to go in for a 15-second stop and go penalty. All right, we're headed for the green. Scott Dixon is at the front of the field. Elio Castroneves hot on his heels. Here we go. Dan Weldon is third, and look who is in fourth position, Paul Tracy. Justin Wilson running back there in fifth, and Serbia, Junqueira. Danica Patrick appears in the top 10. She's 8th right now. Marco is 9th, and Darren Manning is up to 10th. And we have Enrique Bernoldi spinning a local yellow, and he gets going again. Bernoldi was running in 12th position. There's the hold for E.J. Viso, and he goes back into the race. Well, I think we're going to see some pretty good racing up front here as Elio Castroneves. We know how fast he has been all weekend long, including in most of the stages of this race. But at the front of the field is Scott Dixon. There's a breakdown of 12 races. Dixon with 455 points. Elio just 58 behind the look. 4 wins for Dixon and no wins for Castroneves, but the same number of top 5s.
And for Castroneves, he knows exactly what he needs to do. If the race was to finish now, Dixon would gain another 10 points on Castroneves. So that's the thing that he always looks forward to. Castroneves knows they cannot finish like this, and he's just got to push as hard as he can. You have to also make sure you don't make a mistake and take the other driver out, because that would not be very popular.
With 29 laps to go, the question always arises, what about fuel strategy? Let's get an update from Brienne.
Bob, in talking to the top 3 of the field right now, all 3 of them are on the same fuel strategy. They pitted roughly on the same lap. So not one of them would be able to make it as it stands on fuel. Tim Cendrick, who calls the shots for Elio, told him he needs to make roughly 3.4 to 3.5 miles per gallon, or he needs another yellow if he were to make it to the end of the race. And the same is true for both of the Ganassi cars.
Actually, the top 7 or the top 8 have all been out there for 16 laps on this load of fuel. Briscoe, back in 9th position, has only been out for 9 laps. Scott Dixon, through 12 races, 4 poles, 4 wins on ovals, and 1 finish in the top 5 on a road course, and that was at Mid-Ohio, the most recent race in the series. The road racing veteran, well, he's looked better on ovals this year.
And it is very strange because the team has been so strong on both. But, you know, every team goes through a little bit of a lull, and it looks like they've had their lull this season on some road course issues, and especially Dan Weldon. But then, you know, as I said earlier in the show, Penske had a bit of a soft side there, maybe mid-season, where they weren't really arriving at racetracks all that fast. It took them a session or 2 to sort of work their way up. By race time, they would be there. But, you know, Penske now is arriving at racetracks, and he seems like they are putting both cars very solidly on the track out of the transporter. And Jan Bikas, no matter what and how fast you can go around here, it's all going to come down to fuel for this race.
And you just heard Brienne talk about 3.4 and 3.5 miles per gallon. Well, Scott, to give you an idea, when you're on the highest fuel saving slot around here, which will be slot 4, you can only get 3.2 miles per gallon. So if you have to get 3.4 or 3.5, it means you go into super saving, meaning you've already trimmed down the Honda power plant, but then you have to lift off the throttle early, go to higher gears. So you can't just do it by the dashboard knob. You've got to do it also with some additional savings.
Good point, Jan. 27 laps to go here in the Rexall Edmonton Indy. We'll go side by side here. The top 2 guys in the points are running first and second on the racetrack. Helio Castroneves in the points and on the racetrack chasing Scott Dixon.
Northlands, bringing the world to Edmonton. Profiling our city. Invested in the community. Delivering exceptional experiences. 2,500 events. 4 million visitors. Internationally acclaimed. Northlands, proud to bring you the Rexall Edmonton Indy.
Dougie, 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 Dougie.
What?
Have you seen how easy GoDaddy.com is?
Huh?
Yeah, I just bought you for $1.99.
Did not.
Yeah, I did.
Dog nabbit.
Whoops, just did your dog.
Mr. Winky? My wife loves Mr. Winky.
Ah, now I'm gonna do your wife.
Your mother.
You know I'm gonna do your mother now.
Too late. I already did my mother.
Pervert.
Rexall Edmonton Indy. Scott Dixon is the leader, and we will have 4 races to go in the season after this one. A much-needed week off, and then 2 weeks will be at the Kentucky Speedway, Saturday, August the 9th, 6 o'clock Eastern on ESPN2, with the IndyCar 300 at Kentucky, presented by GoDaddy.com. The season is indeed winding down, and will Scott Dixon be able to hold on to the points lead? He'll certainly add to the points lead if he is able to win this race. There's first and second. Back to third here, that is Dan Weldon. He's 5.7 seconds behind. Now, Oriol Serbia has been on the move recently. He's gone around Paul Tracy, so Serbia is in fourth, and Paul Tracy is in 5th position. Jan?
And now Paul Tracy's getting some heat from behind from Justin Wilson. Just checked in with the team and said, are you still saving fuel or have you turned him loose? Remember, he has no radio communications. So the team said, well, Paul has simply decided to run his own race. So he's not getting, either he's not heating or not able to save the kind of fuel that he thought earlier, and now he's just trying to get whatever he can and stay ahead of Justin Wilson.
Well, in any case, it's been a very impressive performance. Now, Ryan Briscoe, he pitted 7 laps later than the top 7 right now. Briscoe is in 8th position. It's been 13 laps since he pitted. So I'm sure he's going to be able to go the distance even if everybody else can't.
Well, if it does go green all the way to the end, and you see Ryan Briscoe right now working and chasing down Bruno Junqueira. Now, how smart and how many times have we seen Roger Penske, the captain at Penske Racing, turn around and make the correct call and making a strategy change for his driver?
It's happened more than once, hasn't it?
You know, and I thought, why would he do it at that point in time? But now it all plays out.
Bruno Junqueira running right ahead of Ryan Briscoe's also had a very, very good weekend. Oriol Serbia running in the 4th position.
But out of those teams that are all in the top 8 positions that pitted 21 laps ago, we are actually hearing that top 7 group. There is some down there that believe that your team driver can make it all the way to the end, and some are saying they cannot. So this is what I love about this. We're just going to have to say whose poker cards are going to be honest.
That's right. We'll answer that question 23 laps from now. Well, take a close look at this picture and try to decide who that is. Any ideas? Now there, that should give it away,
that last one, yeah. Well, not the script actually, but the last picture.
Scott Dixon, when he had training wheels on, getting his racing career in order, and has taken him to the top of his profession, winning the Indianapolis 500 this year, and at least right now in a pretty good position to walk off with the IndyCar Series championship in 2008.
Well, he also got another set of training wheels, or rookie stripes, taken off just recently also because he has recently just got his pilot's license and started to fly his own plane, and he's now working on his instrument rating. So enjoying that in his off time.
And Scott celebrated his 28th birthday just last Tuesday. Spent it with his wife Emma on Geist Reservoir in Indianapolis to go side by side with Dixon leading Castroneves and Weldon.
Every day, people put themselves at risk unnecessarily by abusing drugs. Surprising thing is, they don't even know it. You see, many of us feel fine, so we don't refill our prescriptions, like Brad here. That's why Rextall developed Canada's first service that automatically
Rextall reminder
reminds you to refill your prescription. Take your medications seriously. We do. Rextall, a pharmacy first.
At the medicine shop, we look out for your health. And we keep your medications in order. At the medicine shop, we help sort out the side effects. We're your watchdog to harmful drug interactions. We're here for your health questions. Remember, when it matters most, it's the medicine shop, part of the Rextall family of pharmacies.
It was perfect. I hit a ton of festivals. Blues and jazz, film, street performers, fantastic plays. Oh, and the Indy race. My heart is still pounding. You wouldn't believe the things I did there. Everything from world-class shopping, to history, to attractions. And the people were great. And what an easy city to move around in. I'm going back, and you should think about coming with me.
Edmonton, live all year.
Well, coming up next here on ESPN Sports Center, you get caught up on all the news from the world of sports. That's coming up right after our race here in Edmonton, the Rextall Edmonton Indy, which is winding down. Just 20 laps to go in this race. Scott Dixon is the leader by less than a second over Elio Castroneves. And the Firestone lap leaders, Castroneves has led the most, 35. Scott Dixon has led 14 and continues to increase to that number. Marco Andretti led 11, Kanaan 9, Briscoe 3, and A.J. Foyt the 4th was up front for 3 circuits around this 1.9-mile track.
As Dixon continues to knock these laps off, he came into this race, as you mentioned, Bob, just needing to lead 32 more laps to become the 5th driver to lead 2,000 laps in his IndyCar Series career. So with 19 left to go, he's going to be very close. Might just get that by a lap.
Now we have 19 laps to go, but this is also a timed race, 1 hour and 50 minutes. So it's going to be close as to whether or not we can complete the entire lap distance. That's Danica Patrick, and she has run a steady race. She is currently in 9th position, ahead of her teammate Marco Andretti back there. Started in 14th spot. More on Danica Patrick from Brianne Pettigo.
Danica Patrick, earlier we were talking about whether or not she could hear her team telling her to get out of the way of her teammates. They did do a radio check not too long ago, and she never responded. So we believe that she does have a radio communication problem. But if you listen to the communication from her race strategist, Kyle Moyer, to her, it does not sound like he believes she has a radio problem. He believes she's just not giving up the position. Right behind her are her two teammates, Marco Andretti, Tony Kanaan. Tony is able to go the rest of the distance. He will make it on fuel, and they believe that Marco can make it, but only time will tell. Be interesting to see what happens with these three.
Whoa,
there goes
look at
Marco.
this.
Ooh, contact between the two teammates, guys, and Danica is off course. Not a good day for AGR.
And Marco damaged his right front wing, it looked to me like. Wow, the three Andretti green cars remaining in this race were running 9th, 10th, and 11th, and there's Marco's damage, and Danica is sitting stalled on the racetrack.
And usually what happens in that situation, Bob, is that the side fence on the front wing usually cuts into the rear tire in that situation. I would not be surprised to see, when we can pull out here just a little bit, that her left rear tire could possibly be flat.
Let's take a look at it once again. There's Marco with Danica.
Usually in those situations, like I mentioned, the defense usually just flattens that tire, so she's not happy.
She's not happy and wants to get going again. But the Delphi safety team does have starters that they carry with them, so she may be able to get restarted, but she's going to, of course, lose many positions and ruin what was a fairly decent, respectable race for Danica Patrick.
Yeah, and she is fortunate because her left rear tire that you see on the right-hand side of your screen does look like it is inflated, so lucky for her.
Marco, meanwhile, has dropped back to 13th position.
He's probably told by the IRL officials to come in because he has some body work loose on the car.
And Brienne and Marco Andretti is headed toward you with some damage on the front end.
Well, his team is waiting for him to pull in. They're going to take a survey of the damage, see what they can repair, and try to get him back out on the race course. We've yet to hear Marco back on the radio, so we haven't heard his side of the story so far. And of course, there's been no communication from Danica on her radio, so we're still trying to sort it out exactly what went wrong between the two teammates. Danica Patrick is making her way down pit lane as Marco is out.
I still want to be by the transporter when all those drivers get in there tonight. I thought it was going to be interesting before. He'd be better now. And her left rear tire is flat, Bob. Look at that.
But she is rolling again and in for the pit stop. And we have another car, of course, and that is Marco.
And her fresh tires. The tires are still a little bit cool. They're not up to working temperature or pressures. Just been a case of overdriving the car a little bit on cold tires.
Now, none of that activity, of course, caused a full course caution, so we are still under green, only a caution in that local area of the racetrack, and so the battle up front does continue, and Elio is just a matter of a few car lengths behind Scott Dixon, and has been for the last few laps. We have just been told it will be a timed race. There are 9 minutes. There you see at the top of your screen, there are less than 9 minutes, or a little bit more than 9 minutes to go.
So now for these drivers up front, will they need to pit again for fuel? Possibly not, with only 9 minutes left and probably, what, 6 to 7 laps left in the race, clearly short of the 95.
Yeah, that should do it for everybody. On board with Oriole Serbia here, and you see Marco got wobbled. That was Dan Weldon that Oriole hit. Serbia's moved up to 4th position at the moment. There's Marco.
Canada had been so lucky for the Andrettis for so many times. Michael had won the Toronto event, I think something like 7 times, but no luck today for Marco here in Edmonton.
Just a little more than 18 minutes to go now. We're going to take another break and be right back for the finish of the Rexall Edmonton Indy. Will Scott Dixon be able to hold off Elio Castroneves?
Edmonton, live all year.
It's estimated that each year, up to 300,000 Canadians are hospitalized because they took their medications incorrectly, or not at all. Many of us simply forget to refill our prescriptions, like Sally here. That's why Rextall developed Canada's first service that automatically Rextall Reminder reminds you to refill your prescription. Take your medications seriously. We do. Rextall, a pharmacy first. Every day, people put themselves at risk unnecessarily by abusing drugs. Surprising thing is, they don't even know it. You see, many of us feel fine, so we don't refill our prescriptions, like Brad here. That's why Rextall developed Canada's first service that automatically Rextall Reminder reminds you to refill your prescription. Take your medications seriously. We do. Rextall, a pharmacy first.
5 seconds to go in this one. There's the leader, Scott Dixon. Right behind him, second place, Elio Castro-Neves. Justin Wilson has moved to third, but they're 13 seconds behind, he and Oriol Serbia. Paul Tracy is running in 5th position at the moment. So Tracy is going to get a very respectable showing out of this outing here in his home country.
Now the 9 car, the target machinist Scott Dixon, Castro-Neves is close behind him. They are now coming up to Danica Patrick after her problems that she has had, and we're coming up to a portion of the racetrack that is tight, somewhat difficult to pass. Now what Dixon needs to do is to maybe just hold back a little bit. He's got to time this right so he doesn't find himself getting caught up to Patrick in a section where he cannot pass. It is difficult, as I said, one lane through some of that section. If you can keep your competitor at bay back there by doing what I would call some off the throttle, holding back or blocking, and look for an open section to pass, that's what he's got to try and do.
We have 14 cars on the lead lap here in the late stages of this race. We have had 4 caution periods for a total of 19 laps, 6 leaders, 9 lead changes, and just about 5 minutes to go in this one. Danica Patrick, by the way, is back in 18th position, and look at Elio.
See, he saw the opportunity in front of him with Dixon coming up behind traffic. He thought, you know something, it might be an opportunity for me to close up just a little bit here and take advantage of when Dixon gets directly behind Patrick, but he overdrove the car, could not make it happen. Luckily for him, that Justin Wilson is somewhat another 12 seconds behind, and here we see the replay just locking up the brakes, Bob. And what ends up happening like that is you lock up the front brake, you lose your steering, you cannot turn the car, and the car just goes straight for him.
A rare mistake made by Elio Castro-Neves, and that dropped him back from the leader, but as Scott indicated, it will not drop him a position because he is well ahead of Justin Wilson, and Scott Dixon has gotten around Danica Patrick, and so it would appear with 4 minutes and 15 seconds to go that now Scott Dixon is going to have clear sailing to the checkered flag.
And so for the folks at home that see those wheels lock up, they think, well, don't these cars have ABS like our road cars do at home? Well, they do not, and it's really up to the driver to apply the perfect amount of pressure going into turns to stop those wheels from locking up. And if you do just go just a small amount too much, you will lock the wheel that's on the inside going into the turn because it has not as much load on that tire as the rest of them. So no ABS, no air conditioning, no power steering, it's no power brakes, no radio. It's just no creature comforts.
On board with Paul Tracy running in 5th position, about 20 seconds back of Scott Dixon. Tracy can walk out of here with his head held high. Great outing for Vision Racing and Walker Racing also that prepared the car. Paul, with Subway sponsorship.
What they were hoping for was a good effort here and a good display and a good finish, which they have had, and hopefully he stays on track for 5th here to the end, and they're hoping to maybe do another event or 2 later in the season. But you know how difficult this was to come and sit in a car with these teams and drivers that have been just doing this all season long, and then to come in here and run on their pace and be very competitive. And I'll tell you that every other driver out there knows that if Paul Tracy's here full time, he will be a contender for the championship next year.
Well, that's right. right, and that's one of the reasons why I'd love to see him get into the series full time. Let's hope that something comes together here. Dan Weldon is 7th. Ryan Briscoe is 8th. Well, make that the other way around. Ryan Briscoe passes Dan Weldon and goes to 7th position. Tony Kanaan is in that battle also, and so is Ryan Hunter-Reay. So that's 7th, 8th, 9th, and 10th.
Now, Bob, we also have to wonder if there's some damage to the target machine number 10 car for Dan Weldon, because he did get hit from behind, so there could be some suspension damage there, some bent A-arms or something of that nature, so maybe the car's not handling as well as it should do for him.
And Bruno Junqueira is being passed. Bruno was running in 6th position, so Briscoe now moves to 6th spot, and Bruno Junqueira is dropping back as the battle is between Weldon and Kanaan. Well, Bruno lost several positions there, dropping back to 10th place.
Dan Weldon is 4th in the championship, so he wants to move up as many positions as he can to continue gaining points towards catching the leader, which is his teammate, the 9 car right there, Scott Dixon.
Less than a minute and a half remain in this time race. Well, the weather has been great here in Edmonton. The crowds have been great, and we have seen a very, very good race. There's the race strategist for Target Chip Ganassi Racing and Scott Dixon, Mike Hull. And we have a minute to go, 1 minute to go.
Dixon and Target Chip Ganassi did not unload super fast here, Bob, but you know, when it's your year as far as the race coming together for you, proper fuel strategy, and a driver doing a perfect job. So give credit to Target Chip Ganassi Racing and Mike Hall and Scott Dixon. They've got this whole season's on a roll, and they really finished off last season really looking so strong. Remember, he just lost the championship last year in Chicago by running out of fuel just on turn 4.
Marty Roth has spun local yellow only, as Scott Dixon is about to win his 5th race of 2008. Now, this will be the white flag lap. He was able to cross the line, or is crossing the line in time to give himself 1 more lap. There is Marty's car, which is has spun and stopped, but again, only a local in that area of the racetrack. Well, he has a 5-second advantage on Helio Castroneves, so a cruise to victory, if you will. Justin Wilson at the moment running 3rd, then Serbia and Paul Tracy are in the top 5. Yeah, he qualified rather quietly back in 4th position. Everybody saying, oh, yeah, well, good job, but I don't think you're going to win. Well, Scott has showed them how to do it once again this year.
Well, I think he likes it like that, though, Bob. I think he likes going about things quietly. He doesn't necessarily like the spotlight on him, and he always gets the job done.
Here's the checkered flag, and Scott Dixon wins the Rexall Edmonton Indy, his 5th win of the year, and finally gets a win on the road course. Well, a great job by Scott Dixon. Helio Castroneves will finish in 2nd position. Justin Wilson finishes in 3rd. We'll talk to Scott when we return to City Center Airport in Edmonton, Alberta.
IRL Racing on TSN is brought to you by GoDaddy.com, the world's #1 domain registrar, where .ca domains are now available.
I'm Danica Patrick, IndyCar driver and GoDaddy girl. When you want to be bigger than what you can be by yourself, it takes a team to build a company, to build a brand. With a team, you really can just do more. We all want to win, and that means success. The GoDaddy team is right for me because they're the #1 registrar there is. I want to be with the best, and that's simple. It's GoDaddy. .com names as low as $1.99. When you have something to say it at GoDaddy.com.
Terrorists!
Oh, he's not a terrorist. He's just an idiot.
No rights.
North Korea and Al Qaeda working together.
And no pants.
What's up with this party? I'm starting the bottomless trend.
Harold and Kumar escape from Guantanamo Bay.
Drink it in.
Buy it Tuesday on unrated Blu-ray and DVD.
It's estimated that each year, up to 300,000 Canadians are hospitalized because they took their medications incorrectly, or not at all. Many of us simply forget to refill our prescriptions, like Sally here. That's why Rextall developed Canada's first service that automatically Rextall Reminder reminds you to refill your prescription. Take your medications seriously. We do. Rextall, a pharmacy first.
Can't believe you. Can't believe you. Don't ask.
You need some help?
Yes. We need to get the mixer back before 5 or else they'll charge us for an extra day.
No, we're not going to have to stop for gas. This thing is really fuel efficient.
That's true. It has variable cylinder management. It's basically 6 cylinders that can run on 3 or 4 cylinders to save gas.
The surprisingly fuel-efficient 8-passenger 2009 Pilot, only from Honda.
IRL Racing on TSN is brought to you in part by Honda. Because better technology on the track means better efficiency on the road.
Right after we get an opportunity to talk with the winner of the Rextall Edmonton Indy, Scott Dixon. Here's Jan Beekes.
And Scott Dixon has made his way onto pit road. Actually didn't pull exactly where they wanted him, but Scott Dixon, first road course victory this season. Yeah, here at Edmonton, Scott Dixon. Scott, you proved on the ovals. Now you've done it on the road course, but what a great day for the championship.
Yeah, it's been fantastic. You know, the Target guys really did nail it on the pits today. We saved enough fuel, and I think that's what helped us in that pit stop to jump. But, you know, I think we've been decent on the road courses this year, but we've just, you know, I definitely made a silly mistake at Watkins, and, you know, last week was a tough one. But credit to the Target guys, everybody that helped today, man. It was fantastic. We played at textbook.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
So Dixon wins over Elio Castroneves by just about 6 seconds, as owner Chip Ganassi also receiving congratulations. There's Mark Cuban. Scott Dixon winning over Elio Castroneves. Justin Wilson finishes third. Paul Tracy to fourth, and Oriol Servia finishes in fifth position. Now let's take a look at the updated points. Scott Dixon has a 65-point advantage now on Elio Castroneves. Everybody else more than 100 points behind. Weldon at 115, Canad at 116. Ryan Briscoe is 181 points behind. Scott?
Another impressive run by Scott Dixon in Target, Chip Ganassi Racing. And Bob, I wonder, will this be the first year that Elio Castroneves does not win a race? I thought he had it in hand, but luck does not seem to be on his side this year.
Scott, nice working with you. You can chat with Scott Dixon at ESPN.com. Just go to search and type in Indy Chat at 8 p.m. this evening. We will see you in 2 weeks on Sunday, August the 9th at 6 Eastern on ESPN2 for the IndyCar 300 at Kentucky, presented by GoDaddy.com. Coming up next, Sports Center. This has been a presentation of ESPN, the worldwide leader in sports. Our congratulations to winner Scott Dixon of the Rextall Edmonton Indy.